Okay guys, I'm going to do my first tank stop now with the BMW 116d. Let's see, I did 974 kilometers on one tank. According to the, still have 111 kilometers left. So I'm really eager to break the 1000 kilometers mark on one tank. But maybe I'll have the next tank to do that. And the computer says I've used 4.5 liters of diesel every 100 kilometers. Well, it seems to be quite good, but I'm really interested to calculate myself what differences are between what the trip computer shows and what you actually use. I've seen quite a bit of variation over the years in or quite a difference in what the computer shows and what you calculate. But I'll have for this car a Sprint monitor account. I'll put the link in the description below. This is where I also keep my track of the consumption of the Volvo V40 of my wife and BMW 320i, which I also still own. So that's it for now. The first tank stop. I'll see how many liters I can put into the car, and then I'll make a video with the first week impressions. Tomorrow I'll have this car for 7 days. So I did almost 1000 kilometers in 6 days, and tomorrow I'll make an update about what my impressions of the first week of this car are. Okay, bye. Well, there I am again. I just fueled the car and it says I'll have a range of 1100 kilometers for this tank. So I'm quite curious if I will make it that way or that far. I'll just put the trip computer to 0. I have a special computer inside of the car's computer which shows me the average fuel consumption and speed over a longer distance. And what did I put in the car? It was 46.33 liters, so just under 50 liters. I guess the car has a 50 liter tank. And what I noticed when filling up the car, there are like 4 points where you can fill up the cars. 2 for if you have the tank on the left side, or 2 if you have your tank on the right side. It seems that most European cars have their tanks on the right side, but everyone is just using the 2 fuel points where you can fuel up your car on the right side. They'd rather stay or stand in line and wait instead of using the left ones. And as the hose is long enough, and if you put it carefully, you can just use the fuel point on the left side to fuel your car on the right side. But no one does it. I just did it, but everyone is standing in line waiting to on those 2 points, not utilizing the other 2 fuel points. Do you have any idea why people just rather wait instead of doing this little extra effort and then just use the fuel pumps on the left side? Well, put your ideas in the comments. I'm just really curious. I just observed it here. I'm just really curious why people do that. Well, as I'm still traffic jamming here in front of the harbor, you can see here, this is the Sprint monitor app, that the car, when calculating, used 4.76 liters of fuel instead of the 4.5 the trip computer says. So it's off by, well, let's say around about 0.2 liters on 100 kilometers, which seems quite fair to me. Okay, I'm now 10 days into driving the 116d. As you can see on the trip computer, during this period I've driven 1,310 kilometers. I was in the car for about 18 hours and the consumption is 4.5 liters on 100 kilometers. I guess when calculating it for the first tank, it was 4.7, so in reality it will be around 4.7, maybe 4.6. As you can see, I've driven on this tank already 336 kilometers, and the range left is about 760. So a quick calculation, let's say I can drive for another 650 kilometers. I'll have driven on this tank about 980 kilometers. Probably will not be able to make the big 1000 kilometers on one tank, but still trying. But let's talk about my impressions for this car. Okay, let's talk about the first impressions I have with the 116d Efficient Dynamics Edition. Well, the first impression I got was that the dash cam didn't fit that well behind the rear view mirror as it did in my BMW 320i. So I moved it downwards a bit, so it's lower now. From the point of view of the camera, it doesn't matter if it's there or if it's behind the rear view mirror, but behind the rear view mirror it would have been a bit more hidden. But then I couldn't reach it that well. So that's why I chose to move it downwards, so I can reach it very well when it comes to the buttons, but also to removing and attaching the camera to the mount. So that's the dash cam. So what are my impressions with this car? When I first indicated that I wanted to get this car from its previous lessee in my company, I thought it would be the 4-cylinder BMW diesel engine, which I've known from the 3 Series and 5 Series. Don't think I actually have ever driven a 1 Series diesel, just from the top of my head, at least from the F20 generation. I know somewhere back in 2008 I drove a 118d, but that's the E87 model. Anyhow, so when I found out this was actually a 116d with a 3-cylinder diesel engine, I was concerned a bit if it would be a smooth running engine, smooth running car, as I've known the 3-cylinder petrol engines from the BMW 118i. Videos are also in this on this channel. I was slightly concerned that the engine would ruin all the perception and all the feeling of this car, but I have to say it doesn't. Although it runs slightly raw and you can hear it's a small 3-cylinder engine under the hood, BMW did a magnificent job of isolating the engine from the car, so I don't feel any vibrations. It's not noisy inside of the car. It's just as good as the 4-cylinder engine. Just the sound is slightly different, and it sounds a bit more, yeah, flimsy than the 4-cylinder engine. But when it comes to vibrations or engine sound, I'd probably have to use a decibel meter to find any differences, but it still feels like a 1 Series, a very good car. So engine wise, that's okay. The other point was, I'm driving my 320i, which doesn't have a turbo at all, so you have to rev it. I'm also quite often driving the Volvo V40 D2 of my partner. That car has a 4-cylinder engine, a 1.6 4-cylinder engine, with also around about 115 or 116 HP. Just have to pay some attention here not to be too crashy. I don't know if you can hear the engine sound on the camera quite well, because it's quite a bit of distance. As I said, it's magnificently isolated, this engine. Anyhow, let's go back to the Volvo. The Volvo does have a turbo. It's a 1.6D, the 4-cylinder engine with a turbo, but it has quite a bit of turbo lag. So if you accelerate, nothing happens, and then it just goes. In this car it's different. I anticipated it also to have a bit of turbo lag, but it's a totally different technology BMW used here. It used a twin scroll turbo, which means that the turbo already is using its power, or is delivering power at low torques. So when driving this car, you can notice
barely any turbo lag, so it accelerates very well. Of course, it isn't a 120 diesel, but you can keep up with traffic and also be faster than traffic. You only notice when revving it beyond 2000 or 2500 RPMs that it just loses its breath. There you can find that there's no increase. Where areas on different cars which have the traditional turbo, you'll just notice if you're revving it, then it gets to be faster. But still, engine-wise, I think it's fairly sufficient for what I want to do with it. I'm generally driving it 100 to 130 kilometers an hour on the highway, so that's no problem. But apart from the four-cylinder or different from the four-cylinder engines, is that I need to shift this engine a lot more. Also, when looking at the shift indicator, when driving at, well, I'm currently driving at 85 kilometers an hour and I'm in 5th gear. If I would go to 6th, you'll see the engine just struggling a bit and the shift indicator saying you should go back to the 5th gear. Also, when overtaking or wanting to accelerate from the 6th gear, it's difficult. You really have to go back to the 5th gear to gain some momentum or to gain some forward traction. So that's definitely a difference, I think, with the four-cylinder engines. You shift more with this engine, but if you just shift it and keep it in the right rev range, it's more than enough of engine power that this car has. Okay, so that's where I'm happy. Let's go to the options of this car. I didn't configure this car myself, but still there are quite a few options which make it a very enjoyable car. Let's go to the comfort options. It has an automatic rain sensor and automatic headlights. It has the LED headlights, parking sensors front and rear. That makes it quite a nice car. It has the right options. Then it also has the sat-nav business, which is the small sat-nav with the Bluetooth connection. And what I didn't know beforehand was that the car also has the hi-fi system. BMW generally offers the standard system, which basically isn't that good. Then you have the hi-fi system and you have the hi-fi Pro system. Maybe it's called differently in your country. And this is actually the middle level of hi-fi systems. In the bigger cars, you'll also have a Harman Kardon or a different type of stereo system, or the BMW individual. I don't know how they just call it, but that's then a 5,000 or 6,000 euro option. But this one is really good, the hi-fi. It's very good value for money. It doesn't cost much, but it's a significant upgrade over the standard system which BMW delivers. And I think as most standard systems aren't that great, that's their business model, just offering a low-level standard system, so people will opt for the options they have to purchase. So yeah, I like the hi-fi system. What do I miss on this car? Of course, the glass sunroof. Why? I'm an avid and enthusiast of sunroofs, of using the sunroof. My 320i does have this option, and I use it quite a lot. When not driving on the highway, it doesn't matter which season it is. If it's warm or cold outside, I just like the fresh air inside of my car. I like the light which comes through it, so I use it a lot, the sunroof, especially also driving it open. That's what I miss, but I can live without it. It's a nice to have. The sunroof is also quite an expensive option, so if you're on a budget, I can spare the sunroof. However, I'm just a tad disappointed that there's no seat heating in this car. Of course, I will also manage to live with that, but it's a cheap option and I would always take it myself, because if you're having a little bit of a back pain or whatever, it helps you to resolve these pains in your back, or if it's really cold, you'll be warm in a sec. So also another different thing this car lacks is the automatic dimming rear view mirror. That's also an option which isn't that expensive, and I would have chosen. But anyhow, I'll have to live with not having the auto dimming mirror. Okay, what do I like more about the options? I like the M steering wheel and the shift knob a lot. That's what you touch the whole time. Well, as you saw, for the past 10 days I was sitting in the car for almost 18 hours, so I'm sitting quite a bit of time in this atmosphere. So I like the gear knob and the leather steering wheel, M steering wheel, sport steering wheel I have to say. I also like the sport seats. Obviously all this time I'm sitting in these seats, and although my BMW friend from work said they feel a bit cramped, you can use the lumbar support to adjust this cramped feeling, and they just sit very well. I just like the sitting in these seats, and that's what makes this car so much fun. It has the right options. It isn't full options by any means, but the person who configured it just chose almost all the right options for me. So when drawing my first impression conclusion, will I enjoy this car? Yes, I will enjoy this car a lot. I'm happy that I can drive it for the coming 16 months. And I guess I'll drive about 50 to 60,000 kilometers probably in this period, and I think they'll be quite enjoyable. So, but you'll surely see updates on this car on my channel also in the future. One thing I have to mention, it's an Efficient Dynamics Edition. And what does that mean? It has a few... Oh, come on, man. Just keep going. The Efficient Dynamics Edition means that it has a few options to reduce fuel consumption. One of it is that it has a lowered suspension by about 10 or 15 millimeters. Don't know for sure. And I have to say, I don't know for sure if they used sport suspension as a lowered suspension, or they just lowered the standard suspension. Maybe if you know, you can put it in the comments if it's the lowered standard suspension or if it's sport suspension. But the Efficient Dynamics Edition also means that it always starts up in the Eco Pro mode. I do have this regular comfort mode, which BMWs usually start up in, and I have a sport mode. But as I said, it always starts with the Eco Pro mode, and generally I always leave it in the Eco Pro mode. Don't ask me how much difference it makes in consumption. Maybe I'll find out later after a few thousand kilometers. But that's, yeah, it's specifically tailored for the Efficient Dynamics Edition. Okay, well, that's it for now, and I'll keep you posted. Thanks for watching.